will teach you this sort of kind of stuff. And I tell my students, I don't teach that because I don't know it.
It says Mars revolves or orbits around the sun once every 0.88 Earth years.
Okay,
Or
so it's
once
the Earth.
every
2 years.
686.93 Earth days. Yeah, so it's around
Okay,
the
it's
sun.
around the, no, it's around the Earth.
Sun.
No, you just said around the Earth, 600 and something days.
Mars?
No, it says Mars revolves or orbits around the sun once every 1.8 Earth years.
Right, but what's the second
Or
sentence?
once every 686.93 Earth days. It's
Oh,
Almost
okay,
2 years.
okay.
Almost 2 years.
So the same thing happens with the sun. That's why it's your birthday. So Mars, instead of 1 year, it takes 2 years. So at the terrible twos, the energy that's ruling that kid is Mars. Of course it's going to be terrible.
Right.
Okay? I think there's a book called Ivan the Terrible,
Yes.
right?
It's not something, but is it Ivan? Yeah.
I think it's Ivan the Terrible. So I have a girlfriend of mine, and she said that when her child was growing up, he used to point, he wouldn't point at things. I think he would like go like this to like grab them, and when he turned 2, he starts going like this. And she saw it, and I'm like, that's because Mars is ruling that. Jupiter is the explorer. It's also the philosopher. It also rules higher education. You know, anyone who's like into higher studies. Saturn is the sage. If you remember, I told you Saturn is old age, father time. He's the one that ruled, but he had the wisdom to know that we have to sort of fall within line of the rules. Uranus is the rebel. Neptune is the innocent, or the fool, or the victim, or the addict, or me, the dumbass. That's better. Pluto is the magician, the power monger, greed, control, envy, and we will go through the 7 deadly sins, or what we call the ripus in Hinduism, so that you can see that each planet, each of the 7 main planets, refers to one of the 7 deadly sins or one of the ripus. That's why you see these things repeated in culture after culture, because it's the same thing. And the planets, the main planets, have to do with one deadly sin or one virtue. So I'll give you a handout on that next week. And then Chiron is the orphan, because if you remember in the myth, he was abandoned, and that also can be abandoned. He was abandoned at birth, and then the gods adopted him. So this is the first most important symbolic sheet I want you to learn. Because once you know these symbols, you're going to understand, oh, if that person is speaking from their lover, you know it's Venus. And everything that has to do with the lover archetype. If I'm speaking from my children, if I'm speaking like you guys often, many of you speak, you're speaking from your caregiver. Every symbol has a positive connotation and a negative connotation. Every single one. A negative connotation of the mother could be what? What can a mother do that could be negative?
Overprotective.
Overprotective. Think of Goldilocks. Too big, too small, just right. A mother can abandon her children. A mother can leave and work and neglect her child. A mother can be overprotective and not have her own life and just sort of consume her children, or she can balance it as much as possible and do both. Let the child grow appropriately, or, be overly indulgent in the child-parent relationship. So when you're thinking of symbols, think of Goldilocks. It's either just right is what you want. It's either too much, too little, or just right. And for the most part, a person has too much or too little.
Right.
How would you know that a person has too much or too little of something? Based on what we've done in class.
They're excessive, like when they speak more on that subject.
Yes. When they speak too much or too little. I would never have a one-night stand.
Yeah.
I would never, take a job that requires me to travel and be away from home. I always have dinner waiting for my kids. You're hearing, what? Yeah, exactly. Always and never are hints, but there are other ways. If they're talking too much about a theme. So the minute that someone is talking way too much or way too little, always, never, judging, you're going to hear the judgment like the game we played. You know immediately that their archetype is talking. Do you see how you can categorize it? And immediately you're like, oh, that person's lover's talking, that person's mother's talking, that person's mystic or magician is talking. Immediately. Today at breakfast, one of our colleagues was saying, oh, and I spent all night meditating. What was speaking? Of her archetypes.
Of her archetypes?
Yeah, in that sentence. She said she was sick and that she was meditating. So she was using medicine. Meditation is medicine. Which archetype was speaking? Towards the bottom.
The magician?
The magician, yes. And she happens to be a medical
She's trying
doctor.
to stay in control of her
Perhaps.
feeling.
Perhaps. And that's where we as therapists don't judge, we ask.
Right.
So if you think that, that's a perfect question to ask. Oh, perhaps this person is wanting to be in control of their health. And so what do? They meditate. But she's a medical doctor. So it might cause you to wonder, or she might be balanced because she believes in both. Did you get the packet? Okay. So we're talking about symbols today and archetypes. Okay. So these are the main symbols that you want to start off knowing, because you have something on your nose, a glitter. The first symbols that you want to know, because every single person is going to be categorized into these symbols. Okay, and they have to do with astrology, and when we do astrology more, we're going to learn more on that. Okay, so I wanted to bring a bunch of stuff. I brought these cards, Sacred Geometry. Has anyone ever heard of Sacred Geometry?
No.
Okay, Sacred Geometry is amazing. Okay, I love this stuff. Here is some Sacred Geometry. Okay, so this is called Metatron's Cube. This is called the Flower of Life. This is Sacred Geometry.
What is this called again?
Which one?
This one?
Metatron's Cube. Metatron is believed to be an archangel with his twin brother Sandalphon, and is believed to be the only two archangels who ever lived an earthly existence. Metatron is the leader archangel. This is also Sacred Geometry. This is called the Sri Yandra. We talked about this the other day. And this is a deck of cards that have a bunch of Sacred Geometry. This is the seed or the flower of life, which is like on that stone. This is the Sri Yantra, like on that. This is fruit of life, also what's on that stone. Sort of, the seed of life and the flower of life overlap, but you can see that they just have more circles. But what is inside the fruit of life? What common thing did I just show you that's in there?
Circles.
Yeah, but what figure is darkened? Metatron's cube.
Oh.
Okay. Here's the flower of life. You see how they're all built? This is the same as this. This one's Metatron's cube by itself. That's also that same diagram. And then this is the Kabbalah, which we've talked about. These circles are called Sephiro. This is the tree of life from the Kabbalah. And it's basically those same circles that are just sort of spread out. Do you see something common in all of these diagrams?
Circles.
You want to come over here and see them? Just for a moment so you can... Circles, exactly. What's this? This is called the Merkaba. Have you ever seen We've talked about this and I know you've seen it. It's the fifth element?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember when she was standing in the four elements and then she came in and she was taken up?
Yes.
She's the fifth element, which is spirit. She was taken up in a Merkaba. A Merkaba is two triangles, one down and one up. And it's supposed to be what you call a vehicle of ascension. So, what does this remind you of?
That's 6.
Okay, it reminds you of, yes, a Jewish star. And it also reminds you of my model. Because they're triangles, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, one of the reasons why I use triangles in the model is because when the base of the triangle is mother, father, and you have a handout on alliances in there, hi, Elinda. When you have a triangle that's facing down, you're talking about the lower nature. When you have a triangle that's facing up, you're talking about the higher nature. When these two overlap, it is the entire human being, the animal nature and the divine nature. So the Merkaba and that inner sort of triangle or pyramid has to do with ascension. So it's believed that Metatron, who was supposedly on earth, ascended back to heaven in a Merkaba. You'll see that in the movie and in other renditions where they take these gold tubes or things.
Yeah.
And I think in this funny movie, they made it a blue tube, but that was pretty much what they were trying to portray. The one with all of the famous people as the end of the world, Jonah Hill, James Franco.
Oh, yeah.
It's the end of the world, and they go up in a tube, in a blue
Yeah,
tube.
yeah.
Okay, that is supposed to be like the Merkaba. Okay, it's a cylindrical and it should be triangles.
Gotcha.
What's that called?
I don't
My
know.
kids
I think
love
it's
that
End of-
movie.
End of the world.
Is it
'cause
End of the
because-
World?
Because
It's
the
something
pub,
like-
the pub
yeah.
is the name of where it all started, the name of the pub is End of the World.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
that movie, that is using the symbol of the Merkaba in that movie to ascend them to heaven when they're good, right? Okay, so that's that. The reason that it's the Jewish star, there is a really great
No, it's
movie.
not. This is the end.
This
This is the end, okay.
That's right.
There's a really great, what was I saying?
the movie.
A great movie, look it up. I think it's called The Secret of the Garden of Eden. I know they have it on Amazon. I had it, but when I moved, I couldn't find it, so I must have lent it to a client. And it's called The Secret of the Garden of Eden. And it talks about the fall of man. And do you know what it's referring to when they're saying the fall of man in that movie?
When she, I guess.
When Adam and Eve eat the apple?
The apple is the
Okay.
fall.
When they say the fall in this movie that relates to the Jewish star and the secrets of Kabbalah and some of the secrets of symbols, what they're talking about is the fall of the man of penis, not having an erection. It's believed that lacking the creative energy or lacking sexual prowess or lacking sexual abilities or sexual energy kills you. That's why you are kicked out of the Garden of Eden. And what did they say? Now man would be mortal. And what happens?
Is it the Secret Garden?
The secret Garden of Eden? Something
No,
about
just
No,
sex?
no,
Secret
no.
Garden.
The secret garden is something else. That's
Oh,
a
okay.
different one.
No, not the secret
She's
garden. I
talking
think
about
it's
the
secret
Garden
Garden
of
of Eden,
The
sex
Garden of
something. It has a second sentence. It's a video. Put DVD
What do
Secret
you
of
know
Eden
about-
sex or something and find that out. The belief is
The
that it,
secret gate to Eden?
that could be. What's the second sentence?
No, no, no.
It has to have a second sentence that says something about sex. It is believed that if man falls, right, there's no creative energy. There's no ejaculation. If there's no creative energy, there's no what?
Creation.
There's no creation, there's no life. Death. Mortal.
Yes.
That is a big message in that particular movie. So if you're interested in like sexual symbolism or tantra or things like that, that's a great movie to watch. This symbol, why it looks like the Jewish star, is believed to be, and we're going to get to that in a minute, that's the point of all of this, because then it's gonna lead into my relationship model for next month's class, is believed to be the triangle down is the vagina and the triangle up is the penis. And this is really discussed in that movie very nicely. This symbol we know, this is a universal symbol for infinity.
Or maybe sex in the Garden of Eden? The
It could
mystery
be.
of iniquity?
No, I'll find it.
You said it's on Amazon, right?
It's on
It says
Amazon.
Sex,
Oh.
The Secret Gate to Eden DVD, Alchemy, Tantra, and
I
Kabbalah,
think
and
that
the
might be
Mysteries
it,
of
but show me the
Adam.
cover.
That's the one I keep seeing.
I know, I think that's the one.
Shit, the big
Yeah,
ass
I think
black
that's
hair.
the one. How much is it, like 16 bucks or something? 14 bucks. Yeah, I think that's the one. What's it called, so we can say it out loud?
So Sex, The Secret Gate to Eden DVD, Alchemy, Tantra, and Kabbalah, and the Mysteries of Adam and Eve.
Okay, the secret gate to Eden.
Mhm.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we
that's
know infinity, we know this is the triangle, right? We covered the triangle in depth.
Yeah, it's archetypal stories.
Okay,
Archetypal
yeah.
stories, yeah.
The square, which we covered, I need you guys to pay attention to this image on the top. Pass that around, I need you to know that, and I need you to know this, because this is what I'm gonna use today to segue into relationships. This is symbolic, but it's very, very, very important, okay? So, they call this the Vesica Pisces, this is also known as the Venn diagram. I call it in my model, the I, and the we, and you have a handout on that. This is the Sri Yantra, which we have here, the same, and that's it. If you want more symbols, you can look at this deck. It's sacred geometry, and it's a lot of fun. Okay. So what is sacred geometry? Sacred geometry are these figures that sort of describe the creation of the universe. Okay? So these symbols here are found to describe the creation of the universe. I talked about this one the other day. Who remembers what the things mean? What do you first see?
We first see the triangles.
Okay, so I gave you this, 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 and this. That's the Philosopher's Stone. We said that it looked just like this. What do we remember about the triangle? What does the triangle equal? Thoughts, exactly. What else do you see?
The cosmos,
Okay, and what's it represented
the
as?
circle.
The circle. Or this is the universal consciousness, if you want. What else do we see in here?
The squares.
The square, what does it represent?
The
Rules
earth.
and structure.
The body or the earth, which of course are Saturn and rules and structure, yes. And the inner circle is
God within you.
the God within you, and that's called a bindi. And this is your inner God, your personal, so here we are back with your personal mythology, your personal myth, your personal God, your personal consciousness, however you want to call it. These symbols represent the cosmos, and they explain the universe. That is the purpose of the sacred geometry. Okay? There are a ton. So this is Metatron's cube that also has what shapes?
Circles, triangles.
Circles, triangles, and squares. You see the repetition because that's all there is, people. That is all there is. The law of octaves. 3 is what shape?
Triangle.
The triangle. And what does it represent? Thoughts. 4 is what shape? Square. And what does it represent?
Body.
The body. So you have your thoughts, You have your body, and then the circles represent what and what? Your inner God and your outer God, or the cosmos. Do you understand that it is you in 4 shapes? Well, 3 shapes, but the circle is repeated. This is it. This is the big whole ordeal why we have religious wars and why every country or every philosophy is written about. An outer God, your thoughts rule you, your body is in the middle, and your inner God is inside of you. And if you listen to these things, or if you work your way through them, you can reach enlightenment or divine consciousness. That's the whole big deal about all of this New Age and all about everything with religion and spirituality. That's it, in a nutshell. In 3 shapes. Don't get complicated, okay? Don't go to war. Sorry, James. Okay. So I want to talk about this. Okay, this gets juicy, and I need you to listen. I need you to take out your handout that is called the I, and the we. There's a couple of handouts on this. I'm not going to go through all of it today because it's going to be my whole model, but it's the beginning to segue into relationships. You see how many handouts I gave you? This is all part of the coaching program. You guys are getting all of my meat. Don't lose it. This is juicy stuff.
We could make posters out of all of them.
I would love that. I'm so excited to make posters.
Yeah.
This whole classroom is going to have my theories.
Colorful posters.
My ego, and I'm supposed to be shattering my ego with kids. I'm supposed to be growing my ego.
All I know is you're gonna be okay for all of it.
Oh my God.
That's right.
This classroom is gonna be what everybody thought couldn't happen.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Okay. So I gave you a bunch of handouts of stuff we already covered. Okay. We are not going to cover the truth is in the triangle yet. That is my model on relationships. We are building up to that. Don't miss next class. It's going to answer all of your questions about your love life. Okay? Next class meaning next term. Yes, I'm going to explain why everyone is so fucked up in their relationships. Okay? I'm going to also explain the thread mate soulmate. So we're not going to talk about that. We're talking about these 2. Okay? Prepare to be blown away what I'm going to teach you. Okay? You have the I, and the we. And you have what's called the Hieros Gamos, the mystical marriage. What does this look like?
2 rings.
2 rings. Right?
Unified.
And where do we wear rings? For marriage. Okay. So we're talking about the mystical marriage and the I and the we. Very important. So take those out. If you have not seen this, please make sure. This is super, super important. You have ingrained in your head. I'm going to explain everything. That one and the other one right below it. No, not the thread, the Hieros Gamos. Okay. Everyone understand this so I can erase it. Where's my phone?
Wait, this one?
That one
Yes.
is the I and the we, yes.
Okay.
And the second one is the Hieros Gamos, the mystical marriage. So, we now know that all of this stuff is boiled down to these 3 shapes. You now know the entire origin of the universe, and you now know everything that people are arguing about and what the whole New Age spiritual movement is about. Okay, now we're going to get into the juice of symbol. This is going to lead to the relationship part of it. And we will talk about more symbols later, but I want to start this conversation. Okay. So this ever see this when they were in school? Okay, what was it called? Do you remember? A Venn diagram. And they say that we don't mix church and state. In the school.
We're not supposed to.
No, but I'm going to show you how we do. Venn diagram is what you see in school. I know it's not even, it should be even. It's also known as the Vesica Pisces. And I call it the I, and the we. And this is the basis of my relationship model, but we're just going to talk first about the symbolism. Why do we use circles? What does the circle represent? Okay, cosmos, the universe, God, and it represents one. Represents wholeness. Remember I said, to get to wholeness, you have to embrace the whole mess. Wholeness, whole mess. Okay, remember that? That's what you're going to do in relationships. You're going to reach wholeness so you can embrace the whole mess of your life and your love. Okay? So this is wholeness. You have two rings here. Now, in the middle of these two circles, you have this. I told you, you have to know this. You have to see this image at the top and remember that image. And if you watch that video, it's been many, many years since I watched that video, there might be a mini explanation like this, but that you want to see. And that has, inside of it, well, it's not. I know I'm not an artist, and I apologize for that. You've got, who remembers what this is?
No, you had it right. It was a circle inside.
Well, this is supposed to be my circle, but I didn't make it very symmetrical.
There's a circle within that circle.
Okay, so the circle and then the square.
No, it's the triangle. I mean, it's like this. Triangle.
And I have to hook you up. You want me to do this for you?
Okay, hold on, let me. But they all have to be in there.
Yeah, do the cross in the middle first.
Okay, so a circle,
Yeah, do the line down and then like do a cross.
do a diamond. And then the cross. Okay, perfect. That is called, just like this, this is called squaring the circle. I know. What is in the middle of our two symbolic circles here? Our universe, our God.
Square.
You have a square. What else do you have?
Triangle.
Triangles, and what else?
And a square.
And then the circles. You've got circles, squares, and triangles, right?
Right.
Okay. So you see this. This is it. This is the big deal, people. These three things show you everything. Before the others got here, I was telling Marcia and Mr. Pachi that symbols, the reason symbols are so important is because if you can start your session and hear or see or identify a symbol, you can pull the whole thread from the person and you have your whole session. That's what I do. I open the records, I get a symbol, and I already know everything. And you don't have to open the records to get a symbol. You can hear a symbol. And I asked Marcia a question, and I said, what archetype is the client speaking from? What was the example I used? If they were constantly talking about their kids.
Yeah, then it's excessive. It's
But what archetype is it? If I'm constantly talking about my kids, it's the mother archetype.
Yeah.
So immediately you have a symbol, which is the moon. And what does the moon mean in terms of the galaxy, or in terms of the astronomy? What was that?
Caregiver.
It has to do with the mother, but what do we know in terms of astronomy?
That it needs the sun too.
It needs the sun to shine. So if somebody is constantly talking about their children, You hear the mother archetype. You see the moon. You know that there isn't light of their own. And the child, the sun, is giving them light. That means it's giving them worth,